Hey, let's have some fun. Here's the next episode of the indefinite series, How to Have Fun in Destiny. Every week or so, I'm uploading a video that details a new build for Destiny PvP, which hopefully breathes some fresh air into your experience and invites you to try something unique. Each of these builds balances competitiveness with weirdness because I like nestling right between trying and chilling, and I think you might too. For today's episode, we'll be taking a bite out of our opponent's vision and radar, but not on Hunter, on Titan. Let's get started. Like most of my fun build recommendations, there's not a huge amount of complexity, and this build is no different. Using peacekeepers, SMGs, blinding GLs, and flashbangs is nothing complicated. It's really just f***ing fun, and that's the beauty of it. It's all about being super mobile thanks to the speed boosts from peacekeepers, your lightweight GL, or your lightweight SMG too, being amplified, the whole sandwich. It gives you plenty of ways to move super quickly and have a lot of fun outstrafing opponents or watching them struggle to figure out where you went because you're in with a flash and out with an SMG. I think the beauty of this build is how it's all about disorienting your opponent. Then when they try to react with a special weapon or a melee, you're outside of the zone of bullshit thanks to your peacekeepers and SMG or your Titan zoomy move thingy, which is really useful for evading. And that blinding effect is nothing to sneeze at either. Like if you get that GL shot close to someone and hit them with that status effect, it's definitely going to have an impact because their radar and their HUD will be gone, and you'll definitely be at an advantage because it's just such a intense, aggressive thing to do. Blinding GL someone and then peacekeepers SMG him, like, geez, buy a girl a drink first or something. Also, this is kind of interesting. I just want to thank Bungie for this random seasonal triumph I did a while ago where I had to defeat blinded opponents in the Crucible. It honestly kind of inspired this build because I just tossed on Risk Runner and this random blinding GL I had and lost myself in PvP for hours because it was just so dang fun. I finished the triumph pretty quickly, but I just kept playing because I was having so much fun, and I think that's the true hallmark of a great PvP build, so I thought I should include it in this series. I think the fact that this stems from a triumph that Bungie gave me is a really unique situation where they inspired something just with a random little in-game challenge, and I hope I see more things like this for PvP in the future. I don't think things like getting 100 rocket kills are that fun, but I do think things like using a underused archetype or defeating people with a status effect applied to them is kind of an interesting challenge and might make you think about PvP just a little bit harder, which is a good thing. Okay, before I keep gushing about how fun this build is, I should probably detail the build with you, so let's go live into the studio and hear what the other gjerda has to say about this build, because I ain't writing all that shit. I'm just going to improvise it and you're going to love it. After the build recommendations are the gameplay style recommendations, so use the chapter time codes to your advantage if you don't care about something here. Okay, so for this Peacekeepers blinding build, here's my stat setup. I went high recovery and high discipline because above all else, I think that's what I'm going to need when I'm going in and out of fights a lot. Higher resilience would be good, but I just can't hit it. The mobility is actually much higher because no matter what weapon I hold, I get 20 extra mobility for that, and then if I'm holding the SMG with Peacekeepers, it goes above 100. Not really interested in intellect. The strength could be higher, to be honest. I am using Radiant Light to get that strength up higher, and then mods wise, I'm using Quick Charge. It doesn't do anything, just force a habit to keep it on my Peacekeepers. Using Higher Energy Fire, and then Powerful Friends. Using one SMG targeting, SMG loader, because sometimes I just like to hold the SMG in my hands and reload it that way rather than swapping to Peacekeepers and letting it do it. And then double unflinching and ideally 100 resil for extra unflinching, because flinch sucks. Again, there's really nothing too fancy about the armor setup. That's what like everyone would do. Here's the grenade launcher roll. I think auto-loading is really good, and then of course blinding is essential. The out-of-bounds roll I have is amazing. It's just absolute max range, and I wouldn't turn down high cals, but whatever. Of course, as always, we want good movement with Eager Edge. I swapped this out, obviously, quite a bit, as you'll see in the gameplay. I always keep on Catapult Lift though, and I always keep on Seismic Strike. They're just much better for mobility, and this just makes it feel like you're playing Doom, which is really fun. Obviously, the flashbang is integral to the build. Then Touch of Thunder, so your flashbang emits a blind on its bounce, which is really important. And then Knockout, of course, because it's knockout. It's the best aspect in the game. Fragments wise, I just went with some stat boosts from Volts for recovery and feedback for resilience. I'm not using an arc special weapon, but if you have an arc GL that you like, then you should use that with your SMG instead. And then you can maybe get some more blinding effects going off with your arc GL if you got a kill with it while you're amplified. Then Recharge just makes me get my abilities back faster, and I'm going to be getting critically wounded all the time, but the 100 recovery will help mitigate that. All right, that's the build. Also, I didn't mention I used double bomber because more flashbangs. Okay, so now that you know the build, here's what I'd recommend for the playstyle. You should probably travel with your SMG in your hands because the mobility benefit from Peacekeepers is really generous. It actually boosts your sprint speed by about 6% and your slide distance by about 33%, and it also gives you an invisible 50 mobility and 100 handling to your SMGs, plus a 0.6 times animation multiplier, so it's just wicked fast. Not to mention your strafe speed penalty is highly reduced, so you can just outstrafe anyone much more easily because you'll be zooming while you're shooting and rooting while you're tooting. It really is that Western cowpoke life we all crave deep down. God bless America.
One more Saturday night, you wearing them jeans so tight.
I'm kidding, I don't condone America. Okay, so anyway, just holding your SMG itself feels amazing because of Peacekeepers, but here's the rotation that I think feels so good. First, hit them with a blinding nade from your GL, then insta-swap back to your SMG and finish them off while they're totally blinded and disoriented. But if your GL hasn't kept them impaired for long enough, then you can hit them with a flashbang too, because those are going to be up like all the time thanks to your mods and high discipline, and potentially your demolitionist SMG, which I highly recommend. But you actually don't even have to fully gun someone with the SMG, you just have to pepper them down a little bit, and then the very generous melee lunge range from the Arc Titan aspect is just gonna rubber band you up to them and back again, and they literally won't be able to shoot you because you're just teleporting all over the place. Anyway, long story short, feel free to use all your abilities and your grenades and everything because they just come back really quickly and it's super fun. If it takes a few tries to keep someone blinded long enough for you to mess them up, so be it. You get all your shit back in no time, so just keep using it. It's gonna come back. And the other amazing part of this build is that it doesn't require you to have the full setup ready to go at all times. With other builds, the whole point might rely on the fact that you have a throwing knife charged or have Forerunner ammo for a 2-tap or something, but with this one, you don't need ammo or anything. You can just always fall back on your infinite ammo primary SMG with Peacekeepers of all exotics, and you're gonna be absolutely fine. The other cool thing I want to nod to in this build is just how old-fashioned it feels, and I really kind of like the nostalgia element. Like, Peacekeepers have been with us since year one, they've just always been there as a super solid choice, and I absolutely love how they emphasize the fun and the beauty of primary weapon gameplay. These days it definitely is harder to contend using an SMG because of the sidearm buffs and some cheesy stuff going on that we don't need to get into, but regardless, SMGs are still amazing and totally worth using. In addition to this lovely double primary invitation, I also feel like the status effects from the blinding GL are not like that toxic, to be honest. Like, it's a pretty erroneous thing to do these days compared to all the other ways you can mess up your opponent and put them in a totally unfair position. Like, if you think about it, a simple screen obstruction like a blinding effect or a smoke screen is something that I think a lot of shooter video game players are just okay with because you see smoke grenades and flashbangs in plenty of other games, and to be honest, it just feels kind of fair. It doesn't even actually do much damage unless you're really close to someone with a blinding effect, and the status effect still leaves them with a fighting chance rather than zero chance of survival. And this ties into a very real core belief I have about Destiny and video games in general, and that's that I kinda hate using cheesy stuff that's free. Like, after a while, getting easy kills gets really boring. It seems like there's always something in the meta that's low risk, high reward these days, and every time I've tried that stuff, I burn out almost right away. I really like a fair challenge, and that's what this build feels like. Blinding effects are some of the least offensive things you can do these days, and I still feel like I actually have to try when I use this build. So all in all, I really like the feel that it has right between trying and chilling, and I've noticed that when I use it in PvP, I don't really give a shit if I'm losing or winning because it's just so fun to find ways to make it work, and it makes me focus more on how to solve the puzzle at hand than rage at it. I think it's a nicely balanced setup with some really unique fun that feels like a truly old-fashioned shooter with the visual status effects and the kind of mobile hipfire vibe, and it's just a generally good time. I hope you try it out because I think you'll really have fun with it, and it might help give you a fresh way to enjoy PvP. And if you don't, that's cool too. Like all my fun build suggestions, there's inevitably going to be some you don't like and some you do, and plenty of ways to iterate them and improve them over the future. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comments and help inspire other folks. Speaking of which, you could totally take this one further by playing it on Hunter instead of Titan and killing radar with Gemini Jesters in addition to blinding GLs, flashbangs, and an SMG or something with demolitionist ideally. Alright, thank you so much to my patrons for attempting me to quit my day job and do this thing full time, and if you thought I did a good job with this video, please like, share, subscribe, whatever, do your thing. Thanks so much, and catch you in the next one.
Gotcha.